A crow lands on a palm frond. At that exact microsecond, a heavy coconut snaps from its stem and strikes the sand below. To the human mind, the sequence is obvious. The bird's weight caused the fruit to fall. Ancient Sanskrit philosophers called this Karkaṭī, the crow and the coconut. The two events are entirely coincidental, independent and uncaused, yet our brains desperately wire them together to create a narrative of cause and effect. We do the exact same thing with our entire experience of reality. We wake up every day and perceive a rigid timeline of sequential events, governed by solid physical laws. We believe the physical world acts upon us, but according to the Mokṣopāya, we are trapped in a hallucination of sequential logic. This manuscript is the Mokṣopāya, a philosophical epic composed in 10th century Kashmir. Later Orthodox thinkers would heavily edit and absorb this work into Advaita Vedanta under the name Yoga Vāsiṣṭha. But in its original syncretic form, the Mokṣopāya offers a far more extreme view of existence. It outlines a concept called atyantava, absolute non-existence. Traditional Advaita Vedanta compares our experience of the world to a person mistaking a rope for a snake in the dark. The snake is an illusion, but the rope is a real, physical foundation. The Mokṣopāya argues that there is no rope. The phenomenal world has no real substratum whatsoever. It is compared to the son of a barren woman. It cannot logically exist. The authors understood a critical problem. Abstract logic fails to convince a non-existent ego of its own unreality. You cannot argue a hallucination out of a mind that is currently hallucinating. To bypass the intellect entirely, the text relies on bizarre, vivid narratives designed to actively deconstruct the illusion from the inside out. The deconstruction begins at the microscopic level. Looking at the vast expanse of the northern Himalayas, the text introduces Karkaṭī. She is a massive, grotesque demoness who performs intense asceticism in these remote mountains. Her singular, driving obsession is a desire to consume vast numbers of human beings. That deep-seated mental obsession reshapes her physical reality. She is transformed into Vishuchika, a microscopic iron-dense needle, the literal personification of the cholera virus. By getting exactly what she wanted, she binds herself into a state of physical limitation, forced to exist as a parasite, inflicting pain in the blood and joints of the wicked. This translated text details Karkatī's eventual exhaustion with this suffering. Realizing the limitations of her microscopic form, she performs further penance, regains her original gargantuan state, and attains an illuminated mind. To test the spiritual realization of others, she descends into a dark forest, roaring from the sky to challenge a local king and his minister with philosophical riddles. The king answers effortlessly. He describes the ultimate reality as the non-dual, all-pervasive space of consciousness. By doing so, he proves to the demoness that physical forms lack any inherent boundaries. Reality is not divided by physical shapes. The division only exists in the conditioned mind. The text uses this encounter to explain the concept of vasana, the subtle, latent impressions and tendencies deep within our personality. All of an individual's vasanas put together constitute their causal body. It is the exact seed from which a desire springs forth, and it determines the entire nature of the physical body. Karkaṭī's story demonstrates that the physical body is not a static, solid object. It is a fluid mental configuration. It appears dense and inescapable only because of repetitive cognitive habituation. Alter the root desires, and the physical form can be entirely reshaped or dissolved altogether. Moving inward to the psychological level, the text presents the story of Cūḍālā. He is a teenage sage who has achieved the highest states of orthodox yoga. He observes all the ascetic rules and disciplines, yet he remains deeply depressed, his mind agitated by the terror of the cycle of rebirth. Here, the English translation outlines Cūḍālā's retreat to a hidden mountain cave. He engages in grueling vichara, or self-inquiry. He converses directly with his own mind, actively working to withdraw his attention from his vasanas and separating his pure consciousness from his active, conceptualizing intellect. The mechanics of this separation are precise. The text compares the active mind to muddy water inside an earthen pot. Through his intense focus, the waters of his thoughts dry up. The mud, the ego, merges back into the clay of the pot, and the light of universal consciousness that was merely reflecting in the water is freed. Looking at this passage, Cūḍālā reaches his final conclusion. Knowing that the body and mind in tandem only bring suffering, he chooses to undergo videha mukti, a conscious death. He restrains his breath, closes off the physical gates of his body, and permanently drops his physical embodiment, resting entirely in a taintless state. Cūḍālā's extreme choice proves that orthodox discrimination is often insufficient. True liberation demands the active destruction of the ego itself, severing the mind's ability to project the illusion of the self. Finally, the text zooms out to the macrocosmic scale with Bhusunda. He is an ancient, peaceful crow residing in a nest on a wish-fulfilling kulpa tree at the tip of Mount Meru, a geographic symbol for the central spinal channel. This animation illustrates his method. Bhusunda is immortal. He watches creator gods perish and survives the apocalyptic dissolutions of cosmic cycles. He maintains this strictly through the continuous practice of pranayama, bringing the incoming and outgoing life breath into perfect equilibrium. His mastery over cosmic time dismantles standard notions of destiny. The arising of the world is a spontaneous, uncaused vibration of consciousness. There is no inescapable fate governing human affairs. Fate has no ontological binding force against a still mind. Unlike Cūḍālā, who destroyed his body to find peace, Bhusunda represents the ultimate ideal of Jivan Mukti, liberation while living. He proves that supreme, non-dual realization can peacefully coexist with physical form. The physical world is not a trap if you recognize it as your own creation. The demon, the teenager, and the immortal bird function as precise cognitive tools engineered to dismantle reality at the microscopic, internal, and macrocosmic scales. The Mokṣopāya utilizes these vivid narratives to bypass the ego's defense mechanisms. By framing these teachings as elaborate poetic epics, the text plants seeds of non-dual reality directly into the subconscious mind, bypassing the limitations of rigid philosophical debate. Liberation is found by recognizing the physical universe as a projection of your own mind. There is no external escape required, because the objective world is already a confusion of the real with the unreal. When you realize the world is a mirage, you no longer have to flee the desert. You can fulfill your daily duties, remaining embodied in the illusion with perfect joy, dispassion, and non-involvement. This leads to a question. Why did the authors of the Mokṣopāya rely so heavily on storytelling to deliver their most radical insights? In the next episode, we will look into the cognitive impact of ancient storytelling and map how these myths were intended to rewire the practitioner's mind.